Hi, and welcome to our University of Waterloo Community Connect, focusing on working from home. My name is Zach Mercer.
And I'm Shandy Johnston.
And today we're presenting because both of us have been working remotely for the past 8 or 9 years with cooperative education.
So today we're going to cover a few areas related to working from home. So we're going to talk a little bit about office setup, go into time management, and then chat a little bit about some of the ways that we stay connected with our teammates. One of the things we won't cover today is anything related to ergonomics. So if you are interested, the Safety Office has some really great resources for that area. And just a reminder, we realize that everyone's situation is different, and you're going to see when we show our home offices that we represent a spectrum of different options. And we have a more permanent setup, so we definitely understand that you might be looking for something more temporary. We chose to work from home, and you haven't during this time, so we really hope that these tips are helpful.
So to start off on one very far end of the spectrum, my office is a shed in my backyard. Now, I've been a student advisor on the East team for about 9 years now. My territory covers a lot of Northern Ontario, Quebec, and parts of Eastern USA, which means I'm on the road an awful lot. And when I am home, I do have 2 very excitable young children, and making sure I had some separation between work and home was a real priority for me. So I built this shed in the backyard. Yes, it's insulated. Yes, it has power. So I'm quite comfy and cozy in there throughout the year. But this is a very permanent setup, and it allows me to have that distinct space differentiation.
And on the other side, I definitely don't have my own separate space. So I am currently a student advisor on the West team. So I live in downtown Vancouver in a 2-bedroom condo with my family of 3, including my 1 young child. So because of that, I don't have a separate office space. I don't have a separate room. I'm just working out of the corner of our master bedroom. So that means I have a little desk set up here. I have a bit of a space to have my computer set up and some storage space for all of my office supplies, but I certainly don't have that opportunity to separate completely into my own work area.
So with that said, we do represent that big range of options out there, but what is common for both of us is that dedicated workspace. And there's nothing wrong with spending a bit of time working from your kitchen table or your bedroom or your balcony or whatever kind of space you have. There's certainly nothing wrong with that, but trying to carve out some dedicated workspace either within or without of your home can be a very helpful option. And the first tip we have for that is to get creative with what you have. If you have a closet you can empty and put a desk into, if you have a trailer or RV that your family might use over the summer, that could be great dedicated office space for you. That would allow you to have some separation between your typical home life and your typical work life. Also, taking the time to invest in setting up your space can be a real game changer for you. The fact that you might want to actually set up your desk in a specific way, or make sure you have a multi-monitor setup that works for you, or making sure your desk chair is set up to the correct ergonomic setup is a great way to spend a bit of time. And bringing us into point 3, take 10 minutes today to troubleshoot your biggest problem. For myself, that's cable management. I'll show you a photo of the outside of my office, no problem. I'll show you a picture of the inside of my office, no problem. But show you a photo of my cables? No, thank you. So it could be something as simple as taking 10 minutes today to make sure you neaten your cable setup, or making sure your office is set up in a way that'll make you all the happier. Tip number 4, when you're working remotely, it is isolating, so mixing up your space can make things a little bit more easily for you. So whether that's working from your kitchen counter for the morning, whether that's taking a call from the back seat of your car to make sure you have some peace and quiet, make your space work for you. Not only should you make your space work for you, but tip 5, make your equipment work for you. For myself, I'm nowhere near as productive on one monitor as I am when I have a bit more real estate, so setting up dual monitors is fantastic. Shandy, what kind of piece of equipment would be number 1 on your list?
I think for me, having a good set of headphones is really helpful. Noise canceling if possible, but it's better to have something rather than nothing. So now we'll talk a little bit about some time management tips. So some of these might be similar to things that you would use when you're working in the office, but at home it can just change the setting a little bit. So just making sure you're really conscious of your time management is one of our top tips. So first, the biggest thing is scheduling your time. So for me, I find having a loose routine is really helpful. So I'm working at home with my daughter here with me. So one of our big things is always trying to have lunch at noon. So that just keeps us on a bit of a schedule. She knows when lunch is coming. It's a bit of a break at the midday, and that's really helpful to have that set up for us. For yourself, you might want to think about what your day at the office looked like before and try to replicate it at home. So if you were, taking a coffee break every morning around 10:30, that might be the time to wander down to the kitchen and grab a coffee for yourself then. And really take a look at what you can control. So if there are any meeting times that are flexible, knowing what those times are. If it's a one-on-one meeting versus a group meeting, it might be a bit easier to reschedule that if you need to. And with that, the next tip is knowing yourself and knowing your work habits. So having a sense of when you're most effective is really helpful. I find for myself, I'm most efficient in the morning. So that's a really good time to try to focus on getting some tasks done. Also, I try to use time blocking. So I know after lunch, I'm maybe less efficient. So I'll use that time as a time block for admin tasks. Next tip is to communicate your needs with those sharing your space. So again, we know during this time you might be working at home with your spouse, your kids might be there, maybe you're living in a situation with some roommates. So really just understanding what their needs are, what your needs are, and taking some time in the morning and the evening to discuss that, and coordinating your scheduling needs will make everyone a lot more productive for the day. And related to that, one of the biggest strategies I've found for communicating my needs to my family is knowing when I'm going to need different levels of focus. So I like to think about, whether what I'm doing is going to require a high level of focus. So something like a team meeting, a really important webinar, something where I really can't be interrupted. So that's where I'm going to communicate that to my family. If I'm here with my daughter, I might turn on Disney Plus at that time. That's a really good time that I know that that's going to keep her entertained. Versus maybe I'm working on something that requires a bit more of a half focus. So I still need some focus on it, but it's something that if she were to wander in to ask for a snack, I can accommodate that. But otherwise, everything else is kind of in the interruptible category. So maybe that's just answering some emails or some messages. But at least she knows at that time if she needs anything, she can come ask me. And finally, I find the biggest thing that I've always done working from home is really making sure to unplug as much as possible. So it's a double-edged sword when working from home can be more flexible, but you really need to be conscious about that separation. So I personally try to log off at the end of each day and make sure I'm taking time away. Otherwise, you can just kind of get caught up in checking and answering emails 24/7. So really make sure to unplug and step away from your desk at the end of the day.
Incredibly important. I know I really was not good at stepping away in the first couple years that I worked remotely, but it's been something I've been improving on year after year. It's a healthy choice and one I'm hoping everyone's able to make readily. Our final list of tips is related to staying connected with teammates. Now, Shandy and I are actually on opposite ends of the country. I'm based in Ottawa, Shandy's based in Vancouver, and yet we've been able to make this presentation happen using Microsoft Teams and being able to edit documents on the fly collaboratively, so it's worked out really well. But tip number one for staying connected with your teams and also just being an effective person working remotely is to be ready for video calls. And that, yes, it really means that you have to be dressed every day or at least presentable. I know many of my teammates keep a University of Waterloo branded sweatshirt draped over their chair, so if they have to hop onto a meeting, they're always presentable, professional, and on brand. And beyond that, yes, wear pants, folks. It's important.
And Zach, I know you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but our next tip about Teams, we have really found Teams to be a great tool to collaborate. Like you mentioned, we created this presentation using Teams and we were able to edit the document together, you know, hop on a video chat really quickly, send instant messages back and forth. And I will say this is something new, I think, for both of us. So I think both of our teams have just started using this over the last few weeks, but it's really been a great way to keep, you know, multiple team members in the loop and really build those connections with each other.
We've had lots of tools in the past, but this has definitely been a great step forward in terms of our ability to collaborate in real time. It's been a real pleasure. Now, the next point in relation to Teams is figuring out the best communication methods that you can use with different members of your own team. Now, Shandy, you mentioned that there's people within your team that you have to call. And if you don't call, and if you email them instead, that might get lost in the mix. So one of our tips for everyone would be to really understand your teammates and finding out what their preferred methods of communication are. And are you folks doing anything to stay connected and have a bit of fun? Any socialization going on? Shandy?
Yeah, I think we've definitely, you know, even just for our team meetings, started off with a little bit of social time and having that chance to chat and connect with each other. I think it's really important to remember when you're on a video call, you know, maybe if you were in the office, you would have had a chance to interact a little bit before the meeting or staying on after the meeting to have a bit of that socializing. So I think it's really important to make sure to keep that. And I know, Zach, you mentioned that you guys are actually doing a bit of a social event over Teams, right?
Yeah, we're doing Tuesday trivia, and I'm actually in charge this week, so I gotta think up some interesting trivia very soon. Now, our last tip is patience and empathy, and this one is very relevant for any time you're working remotely or in an office, of course, but you know, these are extraordinary times, extraordinary circumstances, and everyone is starting to adjust. Everyone's experiencing something different. Now, one thing we can be doing to help with that is to really be asking the question of what people need, how we can stay connected. Shandy, any tips with this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is remembering when we're remote, we're not going to see those little cues that we might have seen day to day in person. So you might need to really consciously take the time to ask people how they're doing and to have those connections, you know, again, whether it's through phone, email, video chat, text, whatever method is best for keeping in touch with your colleagues.
And with that, we'll wrap up. Thank you all so much for attending our University of Waterloo Community Connect.
And we have a question answer session scheduled for May 5th. So Zach and I are both going to be live online and ready to answer any questions that you might have about working from home. So hope you're able to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.